Hello, it is time for my first wrap up of 2026. So this is going to be books that I read between January and March. And I only read 5. I did DNF 1. And if you watch my video where I unhauled books and took books that I unhauled to half price books, 2 of the books that I will be talking about, I have taken to half price books. So they're no longer on my shelf because I needed to get things off of it. So why don't we start? First book that I read between January and March was The Dragon's Bride by Katie Robert. This is one of the Deal with the Demon novels that she has, and I thought it was a fun read. I wouldn't say an introduction into monster romance because I'm pretty sure there are like other books that are probably a little better to like introducing you to monster romance, but this is definitely felt like a cozy monster romance. I want to get the other books in the series to see how the other brides fared. So we will see how that turns out if I get them after my move, which will have to be. I'm not going to purchase any books before my move, hopefully. Besides the ones that I've already purchased between January and March. The next book I read is The River Has Roots. And this is by Amal El-Multar. And I loved This Is How You Lose the Time War when I heard that this author was writing another book and then it had to do with, you know, folklore and the fae and sisters. I was like, I need to read it. The artwork is really beautiful in here. Let me see if I can find one of. So I think that's so pretty, and every page has these little leaves coming in from the willow. I really like this book. I can see myself possibly going back and rereading this book multiple times. So I very much love it. I think the cover is really gorgeous too. And I recommend this if you love a good sister bond, but also growth, you know, keeping that bond of sisterhood, but also growing yourself and not just staying with your sister the whole time, which is when I was younger, the idea that I wanted. Next book that I read was Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. And I got this book from a little free library because I knew it was a very popular poetry book when it had come out. As I was reading it, I felt it was just like, for a poetry book, it was kind of graphic. And then as I read on and when I finished the book, I realized that like a lot of the poetry was stolen and that the author didn't write the majority of the poetry in the book, or at least it was alleged, but with like a lot of evidence alleged that a lot of the poems were stolen. And so I got rid of it. I didn't like it. I didn't feel like the story, because like poetry books, they still have a story that you go through, but I didn't feel like it was cohesive. It just felt all over the place. I didn't like it. The next book was my DNF, and that is They Fear Unity, and that is by Alo Axelman. This book was, on the back it talked about like politics and things like that. It was written by an author from New Hampshire. I got it in New Hampshire, also from a little free library, and I joked with my mom, be like, what if this house is his? And he just puts his book into the little free library when he notices somebody takes it. While reading it, I got a sense that it wasn't bipartisan writing, it wasn't unbiased, and that some of the facts just weren't fact-checked. And it felt like somebody had printed an essay that they wrote that they didn't get graded yet, and they published it. And maybe I just DNF'd it too quickly, but also the book was written in 2020, so our government has changed so drastically that I was like, cool, I know all of this. I know this stuff that you're talking about. What about today's age? So I DNF'd it. Oh well. And that's not to say I don't like non-fiction books or books that aren't, you know, fiction fantasy, because the next book I read, and I liked it, was How to Stay Productive When the World is Ending. This is written by the staff at Reductress, which is, in a very simple way to put it, like the female version of The Onion. So like you have The Onion, and then there's just like a specifically like feminine version, which is Reductress. So it's a book about like productivity and, you know, trying to monetize your hobbies and things and like that kind of mindset, but in a humorous kind of way, you know, so sometimes poking fun at like being a workaholic and things. And so I really enjoyed this. I actually got this for my birthday last year. So I'm glad that I read it so soon. And this one might become like a coffee table book. So that if somebody comes over and they're like, what is this? I'm like, read it. Open it up. Find a single article and read it. Like this one. Economists worry not enough millennials can afford to gentrify a neighborhood. I also recommend this one if you're looking for a read that kind of like hits the spot with how like the workforce kind of feels nowadays, but you want that little humorist vibe. The next book that I finished is actually a textbook for my public speaking class. It is The Art of Public Speaking by Lewis and Staub, and I included this because we did read every single chapter of the textbook. If I had only read like half or 2/3 of the textbook, I would not have included it. Otherwise, you would have seen a whole lot more textbooks in past wrap-ups. But because I checked every single chapter we read, just not in order. So I'm including it. It was a textbook. It was a public speaking class. Because I have a communications bachelor and master's, a lot of the things that they were talking about with like the communication aspect, verbal, nonverbal, I already kind of knew. So really the new stuff to me was like good tips on writing a speech before you present it, which I never did with presentations and speeches that I did in class. So that was a good part to learn. Now into the books that I purchased, which is a lot. Whoops. I'm gonna go through them and tell you why. The first book that I purchased was Witch Hat Atelier. And this book, or manga actually, my friend is a voice actor, and the company she voice acts for, they may get Witch Hat to do like English dubs for the anime of this, but she also says it's just really cute and she thinks I would like it. And I got this right before the freeze in January in Texas, but I have not read it yet. And honestly, I probably would have read it by now if I decided to pick it up. So who knows, maybe I'll read it before I pack up my books. The next 4, I got on a trip that I went with my friend. I don't remember if I had rewards points or not at Barnes & Noble, but this is before we learned that we were gonna have to move. And I was like, I got plenty of time to read the books that I have. No, I don't. So we're gonna go through really quickly on these books. So I got Love in Focus by Lila Lee, and this is an adult book. It is a queer romance book that has a lot of Korean culture in it as well. One of the main characters has recently come back to the States after going to Korea to, I believe, take care of a family member. It just says her life imploded. So she had to go back to Korea for some reason. Now she's back. They were dating before she moved, so it's like a second chance romance. I really liked I'll Be the One, her YA kind of K-pop book, which was plus size. This one is not plus size, but I still really like Lila Lee's writing, and I really like the concept. So I am excited to read this one. Next book I bought there because I enjoyed The Martian, and I knew the movie was coming out, which sucks because there's a soon-to-be printed on, but I got Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So I definitely want to read this. Why would you say no? My sister's boyfriend, Noah, really likes this book, has read it multiple times. They have also gone to see the movie, and he says it's one of the best, book to movie adaptations he's seen. So I am excited to read it because any clip I've gotten of the movie makes me giggle, and I want to read the book first because I feel like it was a good experience for me when I did it with The Martian. The next two books are by the same author, T. Kingfisher. The first one is one that I've just been looking at multiple times. I had gone to the bookstore and I never picked it up, and so finally this time I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna pick it up. And then the other one is I believe Kingfisher's newest release that I didn't realize was out when I had gone to the bookstore. So we have Thornhedge, and this is a Sleeping Beauty retelling, but it's like, what if Aurora shouldn't have woken up? And then we have Nine Goblins, which is like a cozy romance, but I think all the goblins are just so cute. My cat really wants me to cuddle right now, and I'm busy. I have not read anything by T. Kingfisher. Look! I've not read anything by T. Kingfisher, but I've heard a lot of great things about them, so I'm excited to pick these up. The next book I technically didn't purchase. It was in a sense given to me because my friend had a duplicate on her shelf, but this book has been on my TBR for a while, and every time I had gone to the store with the intention of like, if this is on the shelf, I'm gonna buy it, it never was on the shelf, but it is His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik. And I have two Naomi Novik books already on my shelf that I haven't read. So if I pull the one that's in, no, neither of them are wrapped. But if I pick up one, I'll just read all of them together. But I really want to read this one because dragons. Next book was one that I've been kind of searching for. So my roommate and I, who is soon not going to be my roommate, Tier, but we're still friends, we like to watch true crime together. And we watched this one true crime like docuseries. I forget what it was called, but it was something about like American Family. But the story was this man and his two kids in Ireland. This man hired like an au pair, this woman from the States, to come take care of his kids after his wife passed. And he just kind of needed the help. And then it turned into, you know, they kind of fell in love, and then they all moved to the States, and then the dad died. And so like the circumstances around the death and everything. And so there was like, is this woman bad? So it was just very interesting. I don't want to spoil it, but while watching it, the man's sister wrote a book, and we were like, oh my God, because we were so invested in this documentary, in this case, because it was like twists and turns. At least to us, they were twists and turns. And I was like, let's go see if we can find her book. I couldn't find her book, but the daughter is older now. It was like when the documentary was being filmed, it was like years in the future, because I think the kids were like 7 and 5 or something when it occurred. And so this was at least 10 years later. But the daughter actually wrote a book about the whole situation. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna grab hers. And then if I can find her aunt's book, who ended up, you know, writing something as well, I will read hers too. But it was very interesting and I liked it. And if I can remember the name, I'll put it somewhere on the screen. The next, technically 2 books, but the next book that I bought is because I own the first one. I had gone to Barnes & Noble with my roommate because it was her birthday and I was going to buy her stuff. And I saw it and I'm almost done reading the first one and I know I'm going to want the second one. They didn't have the third one, but they did have the fourth, but I was like, I'm going to leave the fourth one for now. But it is A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers. This is the second to The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which I am about 70% of the way through, so I know I'm going to want to read this right after. The next book that I bought, it's not, I mean, I guess it is nonfiction, but it's not like a nonfiction book. It's not a fiction book. I bought it because I'm trying to get better at it. I bought The Sewing Book. This is by Allison Smith. Yeah, And my roommate, when we went for her birthday, she has been sewing for like 17 years, mainly for cosplay. This is her cosplay name. I can link her things below, but she has been helping me kind of learn a little bit more about sewing, and she looked at this and like looked at the like table of contents and what is talked about in the book, and she said, oh my god, this is going to be a really great book for you. And she's been looking for a book like this for me specifically, so I'd had something like it. So I did purchase this book, but this is more for like a hobby, so it didn't count for like this shelf. Those were the books that I read and the books that I purchased between January and March. Thank you for watching. If you have read or plan to read any of the books that I mentioned and you want to chat about them, let me know. Or if you have ideas for future content, put them down in the comments, and I will see you guys in another new video soon. A bientôt.